Good morning and welcome to the Virtual Village Hall and part 7 of Artists in Focus, where we look at famous and not so famous artists. We take a look at their work, their art, we learn a few facts and stories about them, and then we try and replicate some of their art and do a little bit of our own art inspired by theirs. So today's Artist in Focus is Henri Matisse, known for his sculpture work, primarily his painting work. He also was a collage artist, calling his collage cutouts, and he was also a printmaker as well. Now, if you're new to Artist in Focus, welcome. The idea is that this is a very informal session. I don't ask you to buy lots of new materials. Please do try and use what you have. I'll give you a few different ideas of what you can be using, so you don't have to go and buy lots of things, but you can maybe just raid your craft cupboards or a few drawers that you might have with paper and pens and paint and that sort of stuff. So some artists that we've previously covered are example Paul Klee, Lyubov Popova, Rachel Rausch, Mary Seton Watts, to name just a few. There are a few others, but if you enjoy today's session, then firstly please do give us a like, and we always love to hear your comments, and also we love to see the artwork that you've done. And if it's something that you want to carry on doing, then all of the Artist in Focus sessions are on the Virtual Village Hall Facebook page, but it might actually be easier to find them on the Virtual Village Hall YouTube channel. So just go to YouTube, and if you search Virtual Village Hall Artist in Focus, they should all come up. Now, each session is aimed to be about half an hour long, so you can do it maybe in your lunch hour, if you wake up early in the morning, a nice little arty project to start the day with, maybe when the kids have gone to bed or you're putting the dinner on. We start with learning a little bit about the artist, and then we just do some art exercises based on their work. So today's Artist in Focus, as I said, is based on Henri Matisse. So he didn't always start off being an artist. He first studied law, and then it was in his 20s, or sort of when he was about 20 years old, he had an appendicitis, he was ill with it, and he took up art. And this is what we're going to talk about today, his career as an artist. So I'm swapping between two screens, so you might kind of see me dip out every now and then. I've got the wonderful Andrea behind scenes, who's absolute superstar, helping me out. We've done this a few times now, but if there are some technical issues, please do bear with us. So Henri Matisse, some of his work is very free. His earlier stuff was very detailed, very precise, but he went more into expressionism as he got older. So we have here, this is called the Conservatory. I'm really sorry, but some of the titles and dates have, I don't know what happened, but I've obviously saved them without putting them on there. So what I will do, I will, in the comments, I will put the titles and the dates of each of these artworks, so you can refer back to them if you need to. So he was a leader of Fauvism. So he was one of the leading artists of that movement. It was known for its wild, non-naturalistic use of colour, and critics at the time referred to these artists as fauves or wild beasts. But he felt that, you know, it didn't matter about colour. It was more about how the subject he was painting felt to him. So he didn't really paint things like they looked necessarily with colours. He might use a blue and a yellow face. He might use a red sky. If he was painting a table, he wouldn't paint it as it looked, but rather he would paint it as it felt. He was given some birds and doves at some point in his life, and he really loved the colours and the texture, the movement of these animals. And it's said that he kept them as pets, and he once famously traded one of his artworks to a local man in exchange for a particularly beautiful dove. So he moved on to collage later on in life. This was after major surgery left him bedbound, so he was in his 70s. And this is when he developed these famous this cutout technique, or as we would maybe say, collage. He didn't use coloured paper, but rather he painted the paper to give him the colours. And it was just a case of using scissors. There was no drawing involved. He would then use pins to pin these collages together. And they were just so bold. And I'd like to share with you a little video now. From YouTube. You can see it on YouTube if you want it to look back at this. So I'm just going to share my screen, and there we are. So let's take it back to the beginning for you. So there's no sound with this, but there's just a couple of things that I want you to have a look at as we go through. So here's Matisse with making his famous cutouts. And firstly, I want to look at the huge scissors that he's using there. And also, he doesn't hold the paper on the table or close to the table. He's holding it right up high. No drawing. It's all through just what he's feeling at the time with these cutouts. And also, just take a look at his face. It's so serious, and you can see him working out how these shapes are going to fit together, how the colours work together. And because he's not sticking them down straight away, he's moving them around, making the most of that artwork. So I just really love that little it's less than a minute video. So we're going to go back to our slides now. Thank you, Andrea. And as he was doing these collages, as you can see from this, they are absolutely huge. And he transformed his entire apartment in Nice in France into what he called a paper garden. He had assistants, like you can see here in the photo, painting sheets of paper for him, and then he'd cut them out and he would pin them all over the walls, again moving them to get that negative spacing right, the colours working together, and those shapes as well. So when he was ill, he would also carried on with his painting and drawing, and he would take a long stick and he would tie charcoal to the end of it because he couldn't stand for long periods of time, and he would draw onto the walls and onto the ceilings from his bed, and using his assistants to help him guide that to finish these larger works. So that's a brief little review of Henri Matisse. Hopefully there's some things there that you may have not heard before, some new little snippets of information. So now we're going to go on to doing some artwork, create our own artwork inspired by Matisse. We're going to copy some of his work just so because I think that's a good idea to get a feel for how the artists would have worked themselves, and then we're going to do some cutout art inspired by him. So this is all collage work. I love collage because the colours are kind of already chosen for you, and also you can very easily just put pieces in and out. It's not like with a painting where you've got to mix up a colour. Is the colour right? This is what you're given with. That's one way I love collage, and also you can build up a picture really, really quickly. So we're going to change the screen slightly so you can see, just talk you through some of the materials that I'll be using, and then we're going to flick back to the screen. So Andrew, if you could just highlight my screen, I'm going to pop you down. You can have a little look at what I've got here. Okay, so this is kind of my general sort of collage collage paper box. So I've got various bits of paper, card that I've collected, also magazines. So you don't have to have coloured paper. You could also use magazines, get some really interesting colours and textures like these ones. This great green, this green and blue. So as I say, don't go out and buy lots of new things. You've probably got stuff hanging around. So you're going to need your paper first of all. You're going to need some sort of paper to put your collage onto. You'll also need your scissors. you don't need ones as big as this, but I'm trying to do what Matisse did. Also, you might want to glue these. We're probably not going to have time to glue these down during the session, but just some PVA glue or some paper glue, you can do that afterwards. I'll give you that as a little bit of homework. So if we can have the presentation up again, we're going to look at our the first slide that we're going to be working from. And this is called the snail. So when I was a kid, I had this as a postcard, small postcard size in my bedroom. And when I got to finally see it, I think it was at the Tate in London, I was just blown over by the scale of it, because this is over 2 meters square and it's huge. But we're going to do a smaller version. So we're just going to give ourselves a few minutes just to do this. So just grab, before we start, just grab some bits of paper. You can have it exactly the same colours or different colours if you want. So I'll just give you a few minutes to do that. So I've got some purples, some greens, some pinks. That can work as my turquoise. Okay, so if you've got all those colours together, so let's start. So let's just have, oh, I've gone and left my timer downstairs, but I'm going to look at the clock. We're having about 3 minutes. So you don't have to be accurate in your cutting the exact shapes, but it's just quite nice to have a little bit of that placement. And I'm going to be using a mix of coloured paper and also some magazines. Let's cut that one slightly off. And like with all abstract, it's harder than it looks. So I've got a black piece, so I'm just going to grab a piece of white because I'm doing this on a black background. And if you look, that links to those two colours there. So you just got about 1.5 minutes left. Right, find another green, turquoise. So just a quick warm-up exercise. I'm going to start linking these together. So I've got less than 1 minute left now. Oh, got yellow. Got some purple. And then one long blue, just to finish us off. And that is time. Okay, so no masterpiece, but it kind of just gets us into the mood for cutting and placing shapes. So I'm going to move that one to one side, so you can glue that down later if you want to. And we're going to click along to our next slide. So we're calling this one Drawing with Scissors, because that's how Matisse described his cutouts. Because as I said before, he didn't draw anything. It was all just through the use of scissors and cutting straight onto the paper. He also said there are always flowers for those who want to see them. So this piece here is called, I'm going to try and pronounce it in French, la gerbe, which basically means the sheaf, or a bouquet. So we're working with natural shapes, with flowers, plant-like figures. And we're going to use this for our next. So if we take a quick look at this. Oh, I don't want to slide yet. So just take a quick look at this. So if you look, the shapes are very symbolic. They're very simple. And then if you look at the colour spread as well, we've got, it's well balanced. So we're going to take a few minutes now. We can take about 5 minutes just on our next piece. And I've left la gerbe at one side, so you can still kind of have that in your mind. But we're going to use this sunflower, wildflower meadow type photo to give us an idea on how to make this. So as I say, we give ourselves 5 minutes, so a little bit longer, just making some of those shapes. And we're going to get some colours together first of all. And you can make this as simplified as you want to, like Matisse would have done, or if you do want to go a little bit more real, if that's what you're feeling, then please do as well. So I've got some blues, got some yellows, got some different, let's see if I can get some different greens. There we go, that's maybe a bit too neon, so let's stick with what we've got. Okay, and we'll just have 5 minutes sort of starting from now. So Matisse very much expressed how he was feeling about a piece, about a subject, rather than the realism. So that's what we're going to go for. And if you've got a shape that you really like, then, you know, you might like to repeat it. That might be that sort of red thread that carries through your piece. And you can get left with some great shapes as well that you might want to incorporate too. Like these spiky grasses. I'm just going to start putting a few bits together. So we've had a minute and a half already. And if you want to overlap, you can, which gives you a new dimension to the piece. And then let's add a bit of that blue in. these trumpet-like flowers. So we've got a couple of minutes left. And just think about the negative spaces that those parts are making. Let's bring a little bit of orange into this as well. So that's just a minute left. Okay, so we're coming just to the end of time now, so just finish off, put those last little bits on. And that is time. Okay, so again, you can, after we've finished, you can put that, so we're going to put that to one side now, and then after you've finished, you can glue that. Move it very carefully. There we go. And we're going to go on to our next slide, which shows two portraits. So on the right we have a painting by Matisse, and then on the left I've chosen a portrait that's got quite a lot of shadow, and there's some nice texture as well, especially with that scarf and that hair. And although it's a painting on the left of Matisse's, we're going to try and sort of do this in a collage style. So again, select your colours, and we're going to go for that Fauvism look, so we don't have to stick with natural colours. So pick maybe 3 colours that you really like. So do like this red with the green and the blue. Just have a quick look, see if there's anything else that I'd prefer to use. Something that possibly really kind of really sort of contrasts, maybe. Yeah, I might go for that. And then maybe that pink. Yeah, I might go for those colours actually. Possibly a bit of green. We'll see. We'll see how that one goes. So again, we're going to spend just 5 minutes doing this one. Okay. So you can make it look like a face if you want, or you can just be really, go really abstract with it. Okay, so let's start now. Since it's a portrait. So it can sometimes help to take the detail out if you squint at the picture, and then that will just bring in the shapes and the tones rather than any detail, and that definitely helps. And you can add features if you want, or just stick with those shades and shadows. So no drawing allowed, we're just cutting. And if you change your mind with the piece, that's the great thing with collage, just take it off and start again. Move it somewhere else, cut another piece. So now I'm just going to take a quick look, see what it looks like if I space all these out rather than having them all overlapped. Like that. And it's great using some of the shapes that have already been cut out, just seeing how that works back into your piece. Also, we've got a couple of minutes left. Just think about how that picture, how that portrait makes you feel, the photograph. That the girl's looking very intently straight towards the camera, and it's one of those where I'm sure if you move around the room, I think her eyes would follow you. So I'm just trying out a few bits here. There we go. So we've just got a minute left. So if you want to start to bring your piece together, I don't know whether to keep that free. Add something in there. Quite like that. And I'm just going to have a play with maybe putting some features in. Don't know how I'm going to like them or not. So kind of a rough cut eye. Yeah, I quite like that. I think that's worked for me. So we're coming to the end of time. So finish off. And I think I'm happy with that. I'm going to leave that as it is. Just check this one. There we go. Okay, so that is time. Okay, so I'm just going to clear a quick space and we'll just have a quick look at what we've gone through today. Just having a look at Matisse, some of his works, copying some of them, making our own pieces. I'm going to be very careful as I bring these on. Okay, so we started off just by taking a look at the snail and we copied that. That's moved a little bit since I've done it, so I'll have to put those all back together. And we found that doing abstract's a little bit more difficult than it looks. We then took one of his paintings called La Gerbe. Again, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. And we just made our own based on a photograph of a wild meadow. And now I'm looking at that look, if you remember fuzzy felt, that looks very fuzzy felt to me. I don't know if it's just because it's on a black background. And then we finished off by taking one of his paintings and just turning that into a collage work based on a portrait photograph that we had a look at. So just in half an hour, we've been over some of Matisse's work. Now, if you wanted to carry on with this for a little bit longer, if we can just click back onto the slide, please, Andrea. If you wanted a little bit of homework, then if you want to do the same sort of thing that we've just done with the portrait, but take his large red interior and make that up as a collage, you've got some lovely, interesting textures and tones there. And I love these cats at the bottom. So have a go at making that one. And then next week, please do join me, next month, please do join me on Thursday, the 21st of August at 11 AM here on the Virtual Village Hall for the next Artist in Focus session. And we're going to be looking at some of Turner's work. So again, another really famous artist. So please do join me then. Thank you so much for watching. We always love to see your work in the comments, so please do post them. And as I say, you can watch this at any time on the Virtual Village Hall Facebook page, or you can also go onto their YouTube channel and see that. Thanks again, and I will see you next time. Take care. Bye.